when the really great pioneering developmental psychologists and researchers started looking at human beings and how they develop, there's a very simple, the reason that you don't see these stages anyplace else is that you're working with large groups of people over long periods of time. And so you tend to see transformations that you won't see if you introspect your own mind. So for example, we were using Robert Keegan's estimate that it's about 5 years for a stage to emerge. That's just a very rough estimate, and meditation will speed that up and so on. But that means if you want to see a major transformation of these structures, we're not talking about states. You can go through meditative state training in a couple of months and get into some very high, even nervy kalpa. Guess what? You come out of it, if you're blue, you'll interpret it blue. If you're orange, you'll interpret it orange, and so on. So it's a very slow process to get those, but you'll never be able to see these if you introspect it. If it takes about 5 years for some of these, then you're going to have to sit on your mat 5 years to catch one transformation. Then you're going to have to know what to look for. And you'll be sitting there going, 4 years, still blue, 4.5 years, 5 years. Orange, I saw an orange thought. So you're not going to spot it that way. You do what Lawrence Kohlberg did or what Carol Gilligan did. Kohlberg classically, and Gilligan incidentally was a student of Lawrence Kohlberg. Feminists have misinterpreted her as being a major critic of Kohlberg, which is simply not true. Kohlberg asked a classic question. He asked many, but one was, a man is married, he's very poor, his wife has a terminal illness. There's a medicine at a local store that will save her life. He can't afford it. Does he have the right to steal it? And you just ask a group of 100 people that, and Kohlberg found that people gave 3 answers. They fell into 3 broad classes. And the first response was, yes, I have a right to steal the medicine. The second was, no, I don't have a right to steal it. And the third is, yes, I do have a right to steal it. So then you ask a little bit deeper, why do you have the right to steal it? And the first one is, I have a right to steal it because what's right is what I say is right, fuck you. That's known as egocentric or pre-conventional. And the second is, no, you can't steal it. That would be horrible. Why? Because my country, right or wrong, that's against the law. If everybody did that, it would be horrible. And then the third was, yes, you have a right to steal it. Why? Because life is more important than $7 worth of medicine. So we'd mentioned that as one example the last time as well. Carol Gilligan did the same thing. Does a woman have a right to an abortion? And she found 3 answers. The first was yes, the second was no, third was yes, same thing. And the first one she called selfish, the second she called care, and the third she called universal care. She later added a fourth called integrated. And of course it was very similar to the broad structural stages that we deal with. Now the reason you can do that is if a person is transforming every 5 years roughly, and you take 100 people, you're going to catch 20 of them transforming at almost any given moment. In other words, follow them just for a very short amount of time, and you're going to see these transformations occurring. So under those circumstances, that's why that kind of research can show you these kinds of stages, where if you just sit and have people discuss what they're seeing internally, even if you discuss it among yourselves for 100 years, you're never going to see these kinds of stages, or it's much harder to see that way. So as different developmentalists went in and asked different kinds of questions and then followed people over a long period of time, what they find is that, to use Carol Gilligan as an example, if a woman gives the care answer, that's the first answer she gives when you ask her, you follow her over time. If she changes her answer from that one, it'll always go to universal care. It never goes the other direction. In other words, it's a sequence. So these responses unfold in a sequence, and those sequences are called stages. Now, if you then look at those stages carefully, you can find that they all have a similar pattern, and those are called structures. Hence the school of structuralism that Piaget and so on, and developmental structuralism is the common version of it. What they found when they went in is you can ask different kinds of questions and then follow them over time. So if you ask, what do people see? Tell me what is. That's cognition. If you say, okay, and that's what Piaget, among others, studied. If you say, okay, from what you can see, tell me what you need. So of all the objects you're aware of, tell me what you need, what you want, what you desire. And that tends to be the Maslow need hierarchy. You can say, of all the things that you're aware of right now, what do you call I? What do you call me? What do you call self? And that's what Jane Lovinger did. She found the ego line, or self line. You can say, of all the things that are arising, here's a dilemma. What should the person do? That's what Kohlberg did, and so on. And you follow these over time. Now we find in almost all cases these multiple intelligences unfold through stages. Not rigid, linear, clunk things, but kind of fluid, unfolding waves of increasing care and awareness and consciousness. If we then look at the relation between all of these, we find, for example, cognitive development is necessary but not sufficient for interpersonal development, which is necessary but not sufficient for moral development. What that means is you can be very highly developed cognitively and very low developed morally, but not vice versa. So high cognitive, low morals, I always use Nazi doctors as an example. I always say American presidents too, but people around here know that joke and they don't laugh anymore. So most of your friends are in-laws, okay? So I don't know, but not the other way around. So that's why we say cognitive is necessary but not sufficient for the others, and there's a really simple reason for that. In order for you to say, of all the things that you're aware of, what do you need? Or of all the things you're aware of, what do you value, Claire Graves? Or of the things you're aware of, what should you do? You have to be aware of them first. Hence, cognitive is necessary but not sufficient for the others. And so that's what cognitive, in a sense, is the high water mark. And anything you can do, and it's a structure now. We're not talking temporary states or temporary peak experiences or altered states. It's part of these structures that get laid down in the psyche. And every time you push that up a little bit, because they're usually irreversible, you've raised the water line. And then it acts as an attractor where your other intelligences can start to rise up to it. And it's really no accident that, contrary to the way Boomeritis has pictured the great wisdom traditions, most of the great contemplative traditions put an enormous amount of emphasis on scholarly understanding as well. The Tibetan tradition, you spend 6 or 8 hours a day in rigorous intellectual debate, in addition to meditation and so on. Now, obviously, if you're going to go into a certain type of meditation and you're going to try to think your way into it, yes, then it's an obstacle. But that's the time it's an obstacle. When you come out of that, all of the great Buddhist traditions had really an extraordinarily rich literature that they used to help interpret this. So what we're trying to do is come up with the integral sutra, or the integral tantra. In other words, what covers all this relative realm? That's the integral view. And now you still have to go into these states. You still have to be able to get into emptiness. You still have to recognize ever-present, non-grasping, non-dual awareness, and so on. But that's why the cognitive is up there. And so it can be abused like any other line, but it's the anti-intellectualism that has dominated so much of a lot of the alternative spirituality has just been crippling. And it's finally really, so many people have started to realize this. And so we want to try to reverse that. And it's not, meditation or contemplation is still a core of what you want to do, because that drops the body-mind in any event. And it's a fasting of your lower faculties, so your ever-present and higher states of awareness can come forth. And then you want to obviously blend the two.